She demanded her ex-boyfriend walk her down the aisle, so I offered him the entire wedding instead. That was the line that should have been the end of the conversation, the end of the relationship, and the end of the absurd, self-inflicted drama. But when you're dealing with a world-class narcissist, a boundary isn't a line, it's a suggestion for a better angle. I'm Alex, a 30 woman, and I was, until recently, engaged to Sarah, 30F. We'd been together for 4 years. The proposal had been picture perfect, on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Exactly the kind of curated moment she needed for her social media. The wedding planning, however, was where the cracks started to show, and those cracks always led back to one person: Daniel. Daniel, 32M, was Sarah's ex, not just an ex, but a constant presence who had been upgraded to male best friend. And, apparently, emotional co-pilot. Sarah insisted their history was irrelevant. We're just soulmates as friends now. She'd insist, while simultaneously messaging him every single night, canceling our plans when he needed to vent, and relying on him for all major life decisions. I tolerated it, viewing Daniel as a necessary, if irritating, emotional support animal for Sarah. I set a single boundary: I don't need to hear the details of your history, and he is not to interfere with our marriage. I foolishly thought that boundary was respected. The proposal for betrayal: we were 3 months into wedding planning. We had secured the venue, a gorgeous, historic estate I'd put the 15,000 deposit down on, and were arguing over the guest list, which was somehow 70% Daniel's family and friends. Sarah called me into the living room with that forced, tight smile that meant she was about to drop a controversy. Okay, babe, I have the most beautiful, romantic idea for the ceremony. Don't judge, okay? It's meaningful. I sighed internally. What is it, Sarah? She clasped her hands together like she was presenting a peace offering. I want Daniel to walk me down the aisle. I blinked, laughed, then realized she wasn't joking. Excuse me. I'm serious, she insisted. It's perfect. My dad, bless him, is fantastic, but he doesn't know me. He's never understood my emotional journey. Daniel does. Daniel has seen me through everything, all my ups and downs. He knows the person walking toward you better than anyone. She leaned in, lowering her voice, selling the pitch like it was a television pilot. My fiancée insisted, my ex should walk me down the aisle. He knows me best. It's a symbol, Alex. It shows how mature we are. It shows how I'm walking from my past, validated and whole, into my future with you, guided by the person who shaped me most. I stared at her. The air in the room went ice cold. The casual cruelty of the demand was staggering. She wasn't asking for an honor. She was performing an insult. She was telling me the man she was marrying, that her ex-boyfriend, held a more significant, foundational role in her life than her own father, or even me, the groom. The message was clear: you are the destination, but he is the driver. My first instinct was to rage, to yell about the insult, the lack of respect, the sheer narcissism of turning a sacred moment into a public-facing performance for her ex. But I remembered the first rule of dealing with emotional chaos: don't argue the premise. I slowly stood up, my voice dangerously level. That is a truly profound idea, Sarah. It's certainly memorable. I knew you'd understand, she gushed, relieved. No, I corrected, placing my hands on the back of the couch, controlling my breathing. I understand the implications. If Daniel is the one who knows you best, if he is the person who deserves the honor of presenting you to the world, and if he is the most significant man in your journey to the altar, then there is only one logical conclusion. I met her eyes. I said then marry him. The aftershock and the counter-attack: Sarah's face shattered. What? You're being dramatic. It's just a gesture. A gesture, I replied. That tells me, and every guest, that Daniel is the co-pilot of this marriage, and I am merely the co-signatory. I refuse to stand at the altar and watch my bride be presented by the man she considers her emotional soulmate. I walked to the bedroom and started packing a bag. I wasn't leaving forever yet, but I was establishing the physical separation necessary for strategic maneuvering. Within the hour, the flying monkeys were deployed. Her mother, Sarah's mom, Brenda, called, her voice dripping with maternal venom. Alex, you need to grow up. You're ruining Sarah's perfect vision. Daniel is harmless. You are exhibiting massive insecurity. My reply: Brenda, I'm securing our future. Ask Sarah if Daniel will pay the 15,000 deposit I just put down for the venue. Daniel himself, the ex-boyfriend, called an hour later, smooth and manipulative. Hey man, it's Daniel. Look, I get it. It's weird. But Sarah needs me to do this. It's validation for her healing journey. If you trust her, this shouldn't be an issue. You're being controlling. I recognized the classic narcissist's deflection. If you were confident, you wouldn't have boundaries. My reply to Daniel: Daniel, I appreciate your insight. But if you're the one leading her to the altar, you're the one who needs to support her moving forward. Don't worry about the aisle. Start worrying about the legal fees when I terminate the engagement. I hung up and deleted his number. That conversation confirmed everything. He wasn't trying to heal. He was trying to claim ownership of the event and me. The quiet investigation that night. I didn't sleep at the apartment. I booked a hotel and called my lawyer. Mark, first thing in the morning. I needed to know my legal standing regarding the ring and the venue deposits. The ring is a conditional gift, Mark explained. If you break it off, she keeps the ring. If she breaks it off, she returns it. If the break is due to one party's egregious behavior, we can argue for the conditional failure. Attempting to introduce her ex-boyfriend as a co-groom into the ceremony, is that egregious enough? It's certainly grounds for emotional distress and conditional failure. Mark conceded. But we need concrete evidence that Daniel isn't just a friend. We need proof of active interference or financial misappropriation. Anything that shows this was malice, not just poor judgment. His words confirmed my suspicion. The problem wasn't the ceremony, the problem was the sabotage. I remembered Sarah constantly complaining about my career choices. Daniel says you should switch to consulting, you'd make more money. Daniel thinks your company's stock is overvalued. You should sell. Every piece of advice she delivered was a subtle undermining of my decisions, often attributed to Daniel. I spent the next 48 hours in a deep, meticulous investigation of Daniel's digital footprint. I didn't hack anything, I just analyzed public data and memory. Financial flag. I remembered lending Sarah money several times to cover emergency debt. She claimed Daniel had left her with years ago. I pulled the bank statements from those transfers. They were large, structured loans, not gifts. The digital dirt. I checked Sarah's old shared photo albums. I found dozens of photos of Daniel and Sarah, tagged just friends, from trips they'd taken while she was dating me, which she had previously insisted were girls' trips. The sabotage. The crucial piece of evidence came from a source I'd previously trusted. Sarah's friend, Lisa. Lisa, who had always been slightly uncomfortable with Daniel, had once confided in me that Daniel actively told Sarah to keep her options open, and that I was too nice to marry. I sent Lisa a calm, factual email. I am leaving Sarah due to Daniel's interference. I need documentation. Can you confirm the advice Daniel gave her about keeping options open? Lisa, terrified of the impending drama, but morally obligated, replied with a screenshot of a text thread where Daniel explicitly coached Sarah on how to manipulate me into changing jobs and spending more money on the wedding. Receipts secured Daniel's message. You need to make Alex spend big on this wedding. It will bind him to you. If he balks, tell him it's a reflection of his commitment. If he refuses, you still have options. That was the key. Malice, premeditation, the pre-emptive strike, firing the ceremony, armed with concrete evidence of financial manipulation and emotional coaching. I initiated the first, cold stage of my revenge. The destruction of the ceremony. I called the venue coordinator, Martha. Martha, I need to officially postpone and possibly cancel the wedding, I said. The engagement is in severe jeopardy due to unforeseen family issues. Oh, Alex, I'm so sorry. The $15,000 deposit is non-refundable per contract, she said sadly. I understand, but I want to confirm that since I was the primary payee, no one else is authorized to discuss or reinstate the booking without my explicit written permission. Not Sarah, not her mother, and definitely not her emotional co-pilot, Daniel. I then called the high-end photographer Sarah had booked and paid the deposit for. I canceled the booking and forfeited the small retainer. I did the same with the florist and the custom cake baker. I kept the cancellation notices quiet, sending only one email to Sarah. The wedding is off. Don't worry about the aisle. Worry about the bill. I knew Sarah would immediately try to call the venue, trying to salvage the situation and spin the drama. The moment she was denied access to the booking and told she needed my consent, the reality of her decision would set in. The stage was set for the final confrontation. I was no longer the jealous fiancé. I was the man with the receipts, ready to expose the entire manipulative scheme to her family and to the wider world. The ex may have known her best, but I knew the contract best. The moment I sent the email confirming the cancellation, the entire house of cards began to shake. Sarah, frantic and furious, did exactly what I predicted. She went straight to the venue. The venue meltdown and the financial shock. Sarah called the venue, speaking to Martha, the coordinator. The conversation, which I heard about later through my lawyer who had advised Martha, was exactly the public meltdown I needed. I need to confirm the wedding, Martha! Alex is being irrational! It's just a fight! I'm sorry, Sarah, Martha said calmly. Alex has officially postponed the date. Since he is the signatory, you will need his written authorization to reinstate the booking, and the $15,000 deposit is non-refundable. Sarah exploded. She immediately called her mother, Brenda, and Daniel. they converged on the apartment, ready for a 3-on-1 ambush. I was waiting for them, sitting calmly at the kitchen table, a printout of the venue contract and my evidence binder laid out before me. "You are a heartless, petty monster," Sarah shrieked, throwing her purse across the room. "You canceled everything!" Over Daniel walking me down the aisle, Brenda stepped forward, trying to play the reasonable adult. "Alex, this is insane. We can fix this. You're being controlling. We'll pay you back the 15,000 die." The confrontation facts, not feelings. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I spoke to them as if they were business partners I was terminating for breach of contract. "This is not about an aisle, Sarah. The aisle was the final, public symptom of a private, sustained breach of trust. I have the receipts." I slid the binder across the table. "Exhibit A, the 5,000 loan document. Sarah, you borrowed this from me 2 years ago, claiming Daniel left you with debt. Daniel, you claim to be financially responsible. This money was never fully repaid. Exhibit B, the coach manipulation text." I pointed directly at Daniel. "Daniel, you told Sarah, and I quote, 'You need to make Alex spend big on this wedding. It will bind him to you.' This shows active, malicious interference in our financial life, aimed at leveraging my assets." Daniel's smug face finally crumbled. "That was taken out of context. We were talking about relationships generally. The context," I stated, "was your advice on how to manipulate me into overspending on a wedding you wanted to control, specifically because you wanted me to be bound to her. That is financial and emotional sabotage." Exhibit C, the conditional gift clause. I showed Sarah the ring rider. "The ring is a conditional gift for marriage. You broke the condition not by walking away, but by publicly and privately prioritizing your ex, proving the lack of commitment required for the contract. Your demand that he walk you down the aisle was the final, public statement that I was not your partner, but your ATM. The final ultimatum." I stood up. "The engagement is over. The wedding is cancelled. The 15,000 is lost. The only thing you are entitled to is the door." Sarah was sobbing, her composure completely gone. "You can't do this! I love you!" "I'll tell everyone you're abusive." Brenda tried one last desperate move. "If you reinstate the wedding, we'll agree Daniel can only be a guest." "Please, Alex." I looked at Sarah, then at Daniel, and finally at Brenda. "My final offer is this: keep Daniel in your lives, or keep the wedding deposit. You chose Daniel's ego over my respect. You chose his advice over my financial health. You chose his presence on the aisle over our future. The 15,000 is the price of that choice. Enjoy your ex-boyfriend." I walked into the office, locked the door, and called security to ensure the apartment was cleared within the hour. The financial and social ruin. Sarah, devastated, immediately tried to sue me for the ring and the wedding deposits, coached by Daniel, who suddenly appeared to have all the legal expertise in the world. My lawyer, Mark, filed a robust counter-suit citing conditional gift failure, proving Sarah's behavior, the ISIL demand, Daniel's coaching, was a fundamental breach of the marital contract, allowing me to retain the ring. Emotional distress and malicious interference. Using Daniel's text messages to demonstrate a concerted effort to undermine my financial standing and psychological well-being. The judge, reviewing the evidence, saw the manipulation immediately. The case was dismissed. Sarah was ordered to pay a portion of my legal fees, effectively leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back and the company of Daniel. Daniel's fall from grace. The information about Daniel's constant, toxic interference didn't stay quiet. My lawyer, during the legal back and forth, made sure Daniel's professional contacts were made aware of his documented attempts at sabotage. Daniel, who worked in HER, prided himself on his emotional intelligence. The fact that he was actively coaching a woman to financially manipulate her fiancé was a massive liability. He was quietly reprimanded and quickly lost all his social and professional standing. His nice guy mask was shattered, and he was revealed to be a petty, insecure manipulator who couldn't let go of an ex. The ironic twist: Daniel no longer wanted Sarah. Now that she was broke, exposed, and carried massive social humiliation, she was no longer an asset he could leverage against me. He vanished, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The quiet reflection and the final word: Sarah was left with crippling debt, no fiancé, no wedding, and a completely destroyed reputation. She was last seen moving back in with her parents, still clinging to the narrative that I was a controlling monster who couldn't handle her platonic friendships. I, meanwhile, returned to my quiet, professional life. I changed the locks, sold the engagement ring, and donated the proceeds to a charity that supports victims of domestic financial abuse. I reclaimed the 15,000 in lost venue deposit through my financial acceleration. The most important part of the story is the realization: a partner who gives their ex-boyfriend a significant role in your wedding is telling you exactly who the most important man in her life is. The lesson is simple: you are not a prop in your partner's healing journey. You are not a financial reward for their ex's emotional labor. When they demand you accept the co-pilot, calmly hand them the keys to the entire plane. Daniel may have known her best, but I learned her best, and that knowledge was the key to my freedom. The only person who walks me down the aisle now is myself, toward a future defined by respect, not rescue.